Undercharging isn't humility. It's a financial strategy that doesn't work for you or ultimately your clients.
I mean, that is just a phenomenal quote. It completely flips the script on how, most professionals view their own compensation.
Right, because we are so conditioned to think that asking for more money is somehow rude or like greedy.
Exactly. And it's just not true.
You know that pit in your stomach when you are staring at an invoice, just hovering your finger over the send button? You're wondering if the number you typed is going to make the client literally laugh in your face.
Oh, yeah, it's a completely universal feeling.
Well, today we are dismantling that exact feeling. Welcome to today's deep dive. We have a stack of incredibly insightful materials on pricing, negotiation, and basically getting paid what your work actually merits. The mission for us today is to figure out why so many talented people chronically undercharge for their skills.
And then we are going to walk you through the exact frameworks from these sources to fix it. But the most important thing to establish right off the bat is that charging what your work merits has absolutely nothing to do with arrogance. It is entirely about the psychology of pricing.
Right.
Our materials today fundamentally reframe how we view our own professional value. They force a transition away from quoting rates based on what feels comfortable or modest in the moment and move toward quoting based on the actual measurable results you deliver to the other party.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can even think about fixing the numbers on anyone's invoice, we really have to understand the psychological gap between knowing you're underpaid and actually doing something about it.
Yeah, there is a verifiable disconnect there. There's this striking statistic from a survey of 2,000 independent workers included in our research today. 78% of them believed they were undercharging for their services.
Wow, 78%.
Right, but only 23% had actually raised their rates in the past 12 months. Think about that gap.
That is massive.
You have a huge majority of people who know they're leaving money on the table, yet less than a quarter take action to correct it. The research points out that this specific gap between knowing your price is too low and sending the email to fix it is where years of potential income just evaporate.
So, what is the mental block? Why do we do this to ourselves? Our sources outline 4 root causes of undercharging, and reading through them feels like looking into a very uncomfortable mirror.
It really does.
So the first one is pricing based on time rather than value. The second is the fear of hearing the word no. The third is racing to the bottom on price. And the fourth is an inability to articulate the value of your work.
Let's break down that first one because it is arguably the most insidious trap people fall into. Pricing based on time. We have been so deeply conditioned by the traditional hourly wage model, since we got our very first part-time jobs, that we struggle to price the outcome rather than the hours it took to achieve it.
Right. There's an analogy in the research about an $80 logo that really nails this concept.
Oh, I love that example.
It's so good. The idea is if you charge $80 for a logo simply because, it only took me 2 hours to design, you are basically punishing yourself for being efficient.
Exactly.
If you charge that low amount, you're totally ignoring the years of late-night studying, the expensive design software, and the countless bad designs you had to make to finally get skilled enough to produce a great logo in just 2 hours.
Not to mention, that logo might become the face of a company and generate thousands of dollars in brand value for the client.
Right. When you price by the hour, you are essentially capping your earning potential based on the ticking clock. You are completely divorcing your pay from your actual competence.
That is a perfect illustration of the time trap. And moving away from that trap brings up the second root cause, which is the fear of the no.
Which is terrifying for a lot of people.
It is. People stick to low hourly rates because they are terrified the client will walk away if the total price looks too high. But what's fascinating here is our sources offer a brilliant reframe of this exact fear. They argue that a no at a higher price is actually significantly better for your career than a yes at a rate that leaves you feeling resentful and overworked.
Wait, really? But for someone trying to pay rent, isn't any work better than no work? I mean, a resentful yes still pays the electric bill.
In the very short term, yeah, perhaps. But long term, it is a trap. The research highlights a hard truth about client behavior. The wrong clients, the ones who are only looking for the absolute cheapest option, are almost always the most demanding.
Oh, absolutely.
They are the least loyal, They are the ones most likely to introduce what the industry calls scope creep.
Right, and for anyone who hasn't been trapped in that particular nightmare, scope creep is when a client keeps asking for, just one more little thing over and over again until you are suddenly doing double the work for the exact same pay you agreed upon at the start, right?
That is the textbook definition.
Yep.
So when you succumb to the third root cause, which is racing to the bottom to undercut the cheapest provider in your market, you aren't winning a prize.
You're just winning a headache.
Yes, you are winning price-sensitive clients who bring unlimited scope creep. You have to position yourself by your results, your reputation, and your reliability, rather than simply being the cheapest option on the menu.
But even if you stop racing to the bottom, you're still going to lose if the client doesn't actually understand what they're paying for. Which brings in the fourth root cause, which is the inability to articulate value.
Right.
If you can't explicitly explain the outcome the client gets and why it justifies a premium price, they will never see it. The materials are quite blunt here. If a client balks at your rate, the problem is usually your communication, not the price itself.
Because if you simply say, I build websites, that is just a task. Anyone can do a task. But if you say, I build websites optimized to increase your customer conversion by 20%, that is a quantifiable value. You are speaking the language of return on investment.
So if we are avoiding the hourly trap and focusing on ROI, how do we actually put a number on paper? Because thankfully, our research provides three very concrete pricing frameworks to transition away from the hourly grind.
Yes. The first is value-based pricing, which is highlighted as the gold standard for service providers. The formula here is to understand the measurable value you create and then charge a fair percentage of that value.
Right. It's a three-step process.
Yeah. First, you quantify the result. So say your social media management helps a local restaurant get 25 additional table bookings a month, and the average spend per booking is $40. That equals $1,000 a month in new trackable revenue for that restaurant.
Okay, so they're making $1,000 extra directly because of your work.
Right. And that leads to the second step, determining a fair value capture. The literature suggests that capturing 40 to 60% of the financial value you create is generally a reasonable benchmark.
Got it.
So in your restaurant example, charging $400 to $600 a month is completely justified because the client is still coming out ahead. Then, step 3 is simply pricing confidently at that rate and explicitly spelling out that return on investment in your proposal.
There is a fantastic case study in our materials about a freelance writer named Dell that proves how powerful this pivot is. Dell was caught in that task-based trap, charging $80 for a single blog post. So how did Dell use this framework to get out of that?
The transformation happened when Deli changed the framing of the service. So instead of pitching, I write blog posts for $80 each, the pitch became, I create search engine optimized content that drives qualified organic traffic and converts your readers into leads.
Wow, much better.
And Deli added, my average client sees a 35% traffic increase in 90 days.
And the crazy part is, Dell didn't go back to school. The actual typing of the words remained exactly the same. The only thing that changed was communicating that 35% traffic increase to the client.
The result was staggering. Dell's new rate became $350 per post, bundled into an $1,800 a month retainer. Dell lost 2 of the old sheep clients, but gained 3 better ones.
That's amazing.
Monthly revenue skyrocketed from $640 to $3,800 just by quantifying the value. Clients aren't buying the words on the page, they're buying the traffic and the leads.
That is incredible. Now, the second framework our sources outline is tiered package pricing, which is presented as the best option for scalability. This is where you offer the client 3 distinct packages: basic, standard, and premium.
Yeah.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the text explicitly states this relies on a cognitive bias called price anchoring. It's exactly like buying a car.
It really is a brilliant use of psychology.
Think about walking onto a car lot. You have the stripped-down budget model with manual windows, which is the basic. You have the fully loaded white glove luxury model with leather-heated seats, which is the premium. The entire purpose of that massively expensive premium model isn't necessarily to sell it.
Exactly.
Its purpose is to anchor your brain to a high number, so that the middle option, the standard model, suddenly looks like an absolute bargain. And the secret is, that middle option is what the dealership actually wanted to sell you all along.
You've hit on the exact mechanism there. The human brain struggles to evaluate value in a vacuum. It searches for a reference point, an anchor. By presenting a high-priced premium package first, you set a high anchor.
Right.
The research breaks down the roles of these tiers perfectly. The basic package exists simply to capture the highly price-sensitive buyers. It's just the core services, no bells or whistles. The premium package targets the value maximizers who want priority access and full service.
But the standard is the goal.
Yes. The strategy is to design your standard package to be the most attractive value. Most buyers will inevitably gravitate toward the middle. It gives the client a feeling of choice and control, while you strategically steer them toward your ideal engagement.
Which leads us to the third framework, retainer pricing. The sources call this the best for predictable income, because relying entirely on one-off projects is terrifying. It's the classic feast or famine cycle.
Retainers smooth out that cycle because they are recurring. Converting even just 2 project-based clients into monthly retainers completely transforms your cash flow. And the research provides a great script for this pitch.
Oh yeah, the script is great.
You essentially tell the client, instead of working project to project, I offer a monthly retainer where you get a defined scope of work for a set price. This guarantees my availability, ensures consistent results, and means you can completely offload this pain point. You are no longer selling a project, you are selling peace of mind.
So we have the frameworks. We've structured the price perfectly. Maybe we've used price anchoring, and we have a beautiful PDF proposal. But eventually you have to get on a Zoom call or sit across a desk and defend that number in a live conversation.
Yeah.
That is the moment most people dread.
It causes a tremendous amount of anxiety, which is why our sources dedicate an entire section to a negotiation playbook. It starts by reminding us that negotiation is not a confrontation or a battle. It is simply a structured conversation about value, budget, and fit.
Right.
The anxiety usually stems from simply not having a process for that conversation.
The playbook gives us 4 specific moves. The silence move, the value restatement, the scope adjustment, and the graceful exit. Let's talk about the first one, the silence move.
Okay.
The instructions are to state your price, clearly saying something like, my rate for this project is $1,500, and then completely stop talking. Let silence do the work. But I have to push back hard on this. Wait, if I just say my rate and then stare into the webcam in dead silence for 10 seconds, isn't the client just going to think my audio cut out? Or worse, won't they think I'm being combative and arrogant? That sounds agonizingly awkward.
It will be incredibly uncomfortable. Your heart will probably be pounding. But that discomfort is the exact psychological mechanism you have to leverage.
Okay, why though?
The research explains that human beings are deeply uncomfortable with a conversational void. We feel an overwhelming urge to fill the silence. The first person to fill that silence after a price quote is usually the one who concedes leverage.
Ah, I see.
Because freelancers feel that awkwardness, they often panic. Before the client has even had a chance to process the $1,500 figure, the freelancer will instinctively start backpedaling, offering an unsolicited discount or suggesting a cheaper alternative.
Oh, you basically end up negotiating against yourself before the client has even opened their mouth.
Exactly that. You have to let them process the number. Let them be the next one to speak. Now, if they do speak up and push back on the budget, you move to the value restatement.
Okay, what does that look like?
You acknowledge their concern, but you pivot the conversation immediately away from the cost and back to the outcome. You might say, I completely understand keeping an eye on the budget. Let me be clear about what you're getting at this rate. We are targeting these specific outcomes. Given the financial result we are aiming for, I'm confident this is a strong investment. You follow up by asking if there is a specific concern about the value that you can address.
So you are forcing them to look the return on investment, not just the expense.
Yes, exactly.
But what if the budget really is a hard barrier? Like, what if they literally only have $900 in their bank account?
That is where the scope adjustment comes in. And this is perhaps the most crucial rule in the entire playbook. You must reduce the scope of the work before you ever reduce the price.
Okay, that's interesting.
The materials are rigid on this. Do not simply offer a price cut. Instead, you say, if $1,500 is beyond the current budget, what if we narrowed the scope? Instead of delivering all 5 components, we start with the 3 highest impact ones for $900. Once you see the results from those, we can discuss expanding the project.
That is such a critical boundary, because if you just drop the price to $900 for the exact same 5 deliverables, you've just silently admitted that your first price was inflated. You have lost all your leverage and their respect.
You devalue your own work the moment you do that. And if they still refuse to meet you on either scope or price, you deploy the graceful exit.
Walk away.
Right. The research advises knowing your absolute walkaway number before you ever enter the negotiation. If they demand a price below that floor, you say, at that investment level, I wouldn't be able to deliver the quality you deserve, and I would be doing us both a disservice. I would love to reconnect when the budget allows.
It's remarkably professional, but it firmly closes the door on being taken advantage of. Let's say you've used the playbook, you've won the negotiation, and the client agrees. You might feel like popping champagne, but our sources make a really crucial point next. The transaction isn't actually over until the money hits your bank account.
Oh, absolutely. Getting a yes is entirely meaningless if the invoice sits unpaid for 6 months.
Right. So they lay out a series of operational boundaries to ensure you actually collect the income you negotiated. The materials list several non-negotiables, but 3 of them really stood out to me as absolute game changers.
Okay, which ones?
The first is demanding a 50% upfront deposit for new clients and a full 100% upfront for digital products or short turnaround work. The second is enforcing net 7 payment terms, meaning the client has 7 days to pay the final invoice, not 30 days, not whenever accounting gets to it.
Yep.
And the third is always using a contract, even if it's just a simple one-page document outlining the scope and payment terms.
Those 3 alone will save a professional endless headaches. Handshake deals inevitably turn into memory disputes. And net 7 terms keep your personal cash flow moving, which reduces your own financial anxiety.
I see the logic, but I have to ask a strategic question here.
Sure.
So what does this all mean for beginners? If I put all these strict rules in place, net 7 terms, 50% deposits, rigid contracts, won't I just scare away potential clients? Isn't it smarter in the beginning to keep my prices competitively low and my terms super flexible just to cast a wider net?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that is a very common anxiety. But our source material has an entire section dedicated to debunking this completely.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it shatters the myth that lower prices get you more clients in any sort of beneficial way. The reality is that exceptionally low prices act as a magnet for low-quality clients.
The hagglers.
The hagglers. The clients who disrespect your timelines, request unlimited revisions, pay late, and ironically, are the most likely to leave bad reviews because their expectations are often completely untethered from reality.
That sounds miserable.
It is. On the flip side, premium prices attract clients who follow your process, value your expertise, and actually achieve better results because they are financially invested in the outcome.
The people who actually read the contract and respect the boundaries.
Yes, and there is an even deeper psychological layer to this. The research reveals a profound insight, which is that when you undercharge, you aren't just hurting your own bank account, you are actively hurting your clients.
Wait, how does that work? I feel like I'm doing them a favor by saving them money.
It feels like a favor initially, but think about the long-term mechanics. When you undercharge, you don't have the profit margins to invest in better software, take courses to improve your skills, or refine your processes.
I see where this is going.
Right, and more importantly, because you have to take on twice as many cheap clients just to survive, you become a resentful, exhausted, overworked version of yourself. And that resentful version delivers mediocre work.
Yeah.
Charging what you are worth ensures you have the time and energy to actually deliver the excellence you promised. Your price is a signal. Too low signals desperation. You have to aim for the sweet spot that signals confidence.
So how do we actually find that sweet spot? We have the mindset, we have the frameworks, the negotiation tactics, the strict boundaries. But how do you cross the bridge from being terrified of asking for money today to actually charging premium rates tomorrow? You need a system to build your confidence.
You do. The materials provide a system to bridge that gap, appropriately called the Price and Confidence Builder. It is a progressive approach designed specifically for people who are terrified of raising their rates. It takes all the raw emotion out of the process and turns it into pure math.
Imagine you're staring at a blank proposal right now, and your palms are sweating. What is the first thing you actually type to figure out your new rate?
Step 1 is to list 10 specific, measurable results you have already delivered for past clients. Step 2 is to calculate the actual financial value of each of those results to the client. Step 3, you find the average of those financial values. That gives you a realistic, data-backed ballpark of what your work is worth to the market.
So it's completely anchored in reality, not just a number you pulled out of thin air.
Exactly. Step 4 is to set your baseline rate at 30 to 40% of that average value. Again, entirely objective. Step 5 is where the rubber meets the road. You must raise your rates by 20% on your very next proposal.
Just like that.
Yes, not next year, not when you feel ready, the very next one.
If you're listening to this in your car right now and the thought of raising your rate by 20% tomorrow makes your stomach drop, that is exactly why this mathematical formula exists. It literally protects you from your own self-doubt.
It forces you to stop waiting for a magical moment of supreme confidence and simply execute the math. And step 6 is to track the resistance you get. If no one ever pushes back on your price, it means you are still too cheap.
That's a great metric.
The formula is mild resistance from the client, followed by ultimate acceptance, equals the correct market rate. Our sources end this section with a profound directive, and I'll quote it directly. You teach people how to value you by how you value yourself. Charge accordingly.
That is an incredibly empowering way to view your work. To recap the journey we've been on today, for everyone listening, we started by recognizing the psychological trap of pricing your time instead of your outcomes. We moved into utilizing value-based frameworks and tiered pricing to anchor client expectations.
Right.
We learned how to master the agonizing, awkward silence of negotiation without negotiating against ourselves. And finally, we look at setting non-negotiable operational boundaries to ensure you actually get the money you rightfully negotiated.
The overarching theme tying all of these concepts together is that charging what your work merits is a necessary professional boundary. It is the only way to ensure you have the resources, the margin, and the motivation to do your absolute best work without burning out. It is fundamentally a service to your clients as much as it is a service to yourself.
It completely changes the way you look at an invoice.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. Throughout this deep dive, we've been looking at these pricing materials strictly through the lens they were written for. Independent business owners setting their rates.
Right. Freelancers, agencies.
Exactly. But what happens if you apply this exact same value over time mindset to a traditional salaried job?
Oh, wow. That is a fascinating application of these principles.
Right. Think about your next annual performance review. How would the entire dynamic change if you stopped talking to your boss about the sheer number of hours you worked or the endless list of tasks you completed and instead explicitly quantified the specific financial value you delivered to the company?
It would completely flip the power dynamic.
If you approached your next salary negotiation using the exact same frameworks we discussed today, focusing on ROI and anchoring your value, you might just find that you've been undercharging your employer this whole time. Because remember, as we established right at the start, undercharging isn't humility. It's a financial strategy that just doesn't work. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.